Hello everybody, welcome to a War of the Visions video. Today we're going to be talking about Sylvie, who has released in War of the Visions global version, and this is a global first unit or a global exclusive unit, as many people say, although she may come to JP one day, who knows. But this is a very interesting unit because she is a healer and a damage dealer, and a lot of people are wondering whether they should be pulling for her, considering that we have the global unit Shadow Links coming out soon. But we also have the Addison Ray unit, we may have a Dragon Quest collab, we have winter units and the like. So there's a ton of decisions to be making, and one of the things we have to sort out right off the bat is how does Sylvie's AI work? So we're going to show you right now. What I've done here is I have set up the sample Sylvie to be in a party with in a story map, and I have just damaged my own party, and I'm going to put her on auto, and we're going to see how that affects her. Is she going to buff? Is she going to run up and attack those units up there, or is she going to heal? So the first thing she does, I switch to auto, and she's going to use Healing Prayer, which gives a magic buff up to herself, and is going to heal everybody else. So it seems that even though she could have attacked, she actually decided to heal, and that is consistent with what someone in my guild, Lex Reason, you might know him from the comments as well, has confirmed with me. I'm going to show you some footage from his arena testing as well. But what we're seeing here is that Sylvie will heal over attacking, which is a good thing. From your healer, you want her to be healing and to be sustaining. So further on in this video, I decided that I would put her in another situation where she can clearly attack, and then put her on auto to see what she would do. So this is the place that she's in. She could easily kill some of these units, and we'll see that instead she's going to choose to go ahead and use her limit burst as soon as we put her onto auto. So here it is, it's her limit burst, and it's going to be a beautiful one. I love the animation here. It's going to have a huge heal, a 50% all damage barrier, and now she has an AP refresh as well, so she's going to be gaining AP. Now, one final test that I wanted to do was to see if she could attack somebody or buff her allies. Which would she choose? Because this is a very important piece of her kit. Okay, so we're going to see the chance in a sec here. She is clearly in range to attack this white mage, but she could instead buff a few different units, and what she's going to do when I put her onto auto here is she's going to go ahead and true paladin strike and kill that white mage. So what this means is that Sylvie is going to heal before anything else. She's going to full life before anything else, and then she's going to attack over buffing. And again, I like this a lot. I don't want someone getting stuck buffing in a corner, so that is a really good thing that we can see here. The final thing we need to test, and we're going to figure it out from Lex's video, is does she have the AI where she stands still after buffing, or does she move forward? And that's a really important one. Okay, so here is Lex's video. We're going to put it on 2x speed, and we're going to see that Sylvie goes ahead and puts on a buff. It's a really good buff too, defense spirit, and you can't be broken for either stat. And this is a really interesting match. We'll slow it down when it gets important here, because it shows kind of some strengths and some weaknesses of Sylvie. So right there, did you see? We'll rewind it a little bit. She's about to use a self buff on herself. It gives herself shell and re-raise, and what is she going to do? She's going to sit still. She's not going to move anywhere, and that is a significant part of her kit. So while she is going to heal as a priority and then damage before buffing, both of things that I like, she does have the potential to get stuck in the corner casting Protect and Shell on herself. So you have to be really careful with your ability on Nos, because you want her to be able to stay within range of other people. So what's going to happen later on in this fight, it's very interesting, because Elena is going to be at 1 HP. Sylvie's going to heal her up. Now, unfortunately, we have a Joker here who's going to break that barrier that she just got put on her, and that means that we're going to get her down to a very low percent of HP. But we still have re-raise on, so Elena's going to come back up. She's going to finish off this Leela, and we're going to get another heal here. So here's the Curata from the White Mage sub. Joker is going to try to kill her once again, and he does. So at this point, it's very interesting, because Sylvie can make the decision to attack Joker, but instead what she's done is she's going to try to full life the Elena. But unfortunately, she does not stand up at all to Joker. She gets the re-raise, but he's going to go ahead and finish her off. All right, so we've got one more video from Lex to show off here. And what we just saw from Sylvie was a re-raise buff, and she is on Blade Soul sub, which means she has no full life. She is going to be using her single target buffs. Her team buff has been turned off, and we saw after she used re-raise, she did not move. So next up, she's going to use her barrier, and she doesn't move. So she gets totally stuck. She does not move after single target buffs, even though that barrier is one that units often do move after. Other Blade Souls will even prioritize it over team buffs. So that's actually really quite interesting here, and definitely not what I was expecting. So she has no buff to use. Her team buff is a pretty low range anyway. Wouldn't have been able to help there. So she's just going to move up. Definitely think about giving her a TMR buff with 2 uses if you're not using team buffs for some reason, but her team buff is very, very strong. So we're going to lose our units. And what happens here, because we're losing both our units, Sylvie doesn't have full life. She's going to probably attack unless, so if Elena dies here, there's no healing to be done, which means Sylvie has got to come up here and we'll see some damage output. And that's pretty good. She killed 2 units. And now she's got a duel with Oberon, and she actually has her strongest resistance is Pierce. Now that didn't really help here, but at least she's got her healing potential, her re-raise, and now she's got a barrier. She's got re-raise applied a second time. She's going to keep on healing, and she's going to apply another very strong barrier onto herself, and her AP is not going to be a problem at this point. So we can see that she may even have a chance here. We'll see though. Okay, so there's Clever Paladin Strike. Oberon is going to stun her. Jeez. So at least we have another re-raise. This is kind of an insane fight, to be honest. And she comes in with her magic attack, so that removed all of her his debuffs, and she didn't move, so she lapped Oberon. That's awesome. All right, so now that we know what Sylvie's AI is going to look like, it's going to help us make a decision on whether we want to pull for her. Now, I think that her AI is mostly good, with a little bit of bad sprinkled in at the end with the whole not moving after buffing thing, but that is workable because the rest of her AI seems pretty strong, and she does seem like a pretty decent attacker. So we're going to start this video off by talking about who she could be strong against and who she will be weak against. And if you're wondering who she's going to be strong against, well, there's a few candidates, including units like Dark Fina and Halloween Lucia. So with Dark Fina, we have a little bit of an advantage because she does have high spirit and high magic resist. She has re-raise, so she can survive some attacks, but she can also dispel Dark Fina's re-raise, and she can dispel any buffs that Dark Fina puts on, and then she'll also just be attacking with the light element. Now with Halloween Lucia, the big thing here is that she can bypass Lucia's physical barrier, her defense, and her protect buff, and that is all really good to see. Another interesting unit to attack would be Celas, and the reason I say that is because all of Sylvie's moves aside from one are not reflectable, which means that she can generally attack into Celas, and she does have a lot of penetration. She's not going to do massive damage to her, but she's certainly still going to be contributing. There are other units that she could be decent against, but the real part of her kit that's a benefit is the healing, not necessarily her damage. So she'll be strong against any team that she can sustain against. So that what we really need to look at is who is she actually weak against, and that would be your dark slashers. So she has -5 slash resist. That's a huge problem, especially with units like Leela, Joker, Dwayne, Super Stern, and soon enough Sephiroth coming as well. And slashers in general, Astrius, are just totally going to beat up on her. Anyone with a barrier break is going to be very strong. We saw that even though she was able to give barriers to people, if you have a Joker that you're going against, then Joker can break that barrier. One unit that I think will be very powerful against her indeed will be Delita, because he can dispel her re-raise. You just have to be using Delita, I guess. Next up, we're going to talk about the pros for Sylvie. There's quite a few. She does really look like quite a good unit. So she has a lot of healing potential. There's the good healing AI. She's going to heal over attacking, and she's going to attack over buffing. She can sustain teams with her own sub job. There's a pretty good heal there, and also the White Mage sub job. So there's 2 options. White Mage is preferable because you get access to full life. And she even has a very good cast time reduction on her master ability, which is really going to help out with her casting heals. She has a counter heal as well. If that comes off, it's useful. Otherwise, it's no Aeon's Bond like Yuna, but it's certainly nothing bad either. She's also got decent survivability, and the reason is that she can stack a lot of defense and spirit, but also that 100% defense and spirit debuff resistance, and all of those can be given to allies as well. So it's really strong ability to have on a buff. The downside is the buff has an incredibly short range, at least it's AoE. She also has re-raise, 2 uses. She can heal herself to sustain her life, and she even has the Blade Soul magic barrier if you're coming up against a very specific composition. Her limit burst also has a 50% one-time all damage reduction barrier, which is incredibly strong unless you come up against a barrier break. Her damage should also be pretty decent, considering that she has 40% innate spirit and slash resist penetration. Those are 2 very strong places to build from, so I definitely can see her dealing some decent damage to contribute to your party. The fact that she attacks against spirit is also very good. She also has a lot of high potency skills, and she even has a high potency magic skill, so if somebody has a lot of slash resist and a low magic resist, she can switch it up and use that to attack instead. The one caveat about her damage is that if you're using her event sword, it doesn't actually have any light attack up or slash attack up or magic attack up or anything like that. So she's actually missing some key things that you would have to add from a different sword if you wanted to, or trust stones or something in order to get the most out of her. And then finally, we have some utility with her. She can dispel re-raise, which is quite a big AoE. She also has a full dispel with 3 uses, so that's very powerful against units that use a lot of buffs. And then she can decrease her opponent's defense penetration, so they deal less damage against her and your other units. She also has the ability to inflict slow, which is one of the most powerful stats effects around, and she can even decrease healing power, so in a mirror sustain match, she might be able to win you that as well. Before we get on to the con section, I just want to remind you all to like the video and subscribe if you haven't yet, because I appreciate the support and you made it this far in the video. Hopefully I'm doing a good enough job. All right, so for the cons, there's actually quite a few that I put here. It's kind of interesting. So there's no Curaga on the White Mage sub, and I do think that's kind of a big deal. Even though her sub job has something similar, you can't have her sub job and have full life, so I would have loved to see Curaga there. It's not. She still has her LB. It's not the biggest con in the world. However, slash resist -5% is. That's a really big deal, as is low accuracy. You're really going to have to build her for accuracy if you want her to hit people. Thankfully, that's not her main job. Now, her weapon doesn't have any slash attack up or light attack up or penetration or anything. We kind of mentioned that. She can equip weapons that have those things. If you want to build her for damage, you might consider not using that healing power up on the sword that she gets through the event. However, you can access that through other things like trust stones, so there's many ways to build her. I will say that her timing is a con as well. It really is bad timing with so many limited things on the horizon, so many question marks. We really don't know if she's necessary right now. I'd also say that Light doesn't really need a healer currently. You know, we saw in that match that she could be kind of useful with evasion units if their re-raises, encourages, or proccing, but even then it didn't seem to be that effective. What we would really like to see is a meta where Engelbert is being used again, or some other like light bruisery type people. So she's not necessarily needed right now. And I also wanted to mention that her main job heals and her buffs are pretty short range. I mean, it's not really like the heal isn't super short range, but it's still like she can get kind of stuck out of range if she doesn't move after her buff, and that's kind of a big deal. Her LB is the one thing that will pull her forward and heal people, so that's kind of a big thing. And then finally, that sit and buff AI, that is a huge turnoff for me, and I definitely am not a big fan of that. All right, so I'm going to pull up Sylvie versus Velis on Yuna on the screen right now, and you can kind of see a stat comparison. Pause if you want, but basically what we're looking at here is that Sylvie compares favorably in terms of her magic stat, her agility, and also her HP. Like, those are all looking pretty good. Her accuracy isn't the highest, she doesn't have any crit rate or anything, but that's not really important for her as a healer, but it is if you want her to go on the offensive. Where I think that she really drops off here is the fact that as a support, when you compare her to Velis, Velis does more. He's restoring AP to your units. He's got easier access to heals, but he has haste. And haste really is the thing that Velis does that puts them at the very top. And I think that's where you have a big drop off, because one application of Sylvie, we're saying, you know, I'm saying, oh, it's a con, that light doesn't really need her right now. She could absolutely be used in a rainbow team, or, you know, like 2 elements and then Sylvie, just like we use Velis with 2 elements, whatever, you know, 2 earth units in Velis, 2 dark units in Velis. Like that's a viable team, right? 2 light units in Velis. Sylvie could be used in a similar way, but at the end of the day, without haste, she's not nearly as powerful as he is, and that's in my own personal opinion. So I think that he is the way to go. However, for new units that are looking for that sustained unit that is going to be able to keep them in guild battle matches, and you don't think you're going to get Velis for a while, well, Sylvie could actually really fill that role. And I think if you're pairing her with bulky attackers, then arguably, you know, all the defense and the protection that she's giving them might actually be a better way to go. However, it's hard to say, because I think haste is just that strong. Now, over Yuna, I think that it is a big upgrade, just because Sylvie has so much potential with her attacking, but also with some really fantastic buffing. The only thing she loses from Yuna are the 100% hits and the ability to give somebody else re-raise. Otherwise, I think she's just a much better unit than Yuna is at this point. And then finally, I wanted to talk about Fryevia versus Sylvie, because they're kind of similar. They're both these magic slashers that have the white mage sub job. They have full life, but the biggest difference is that Fryevia is a tank. So really, at the end of the day, their roles are totally different, and you can see that when you compare their HPs to each other. And even though their magic stats are similar, their resistances are very different. Fryevia is doing a different job and has a kind of a different AI than Sylvie does. And I think if you turned off all of Fryevia's tanking, like, could she heal as well as Sylvie? No, because she doesn't have her LB, and she doesn't have, you know, the ability to like raise people's defense and spirit and keep them alive so that she can actually heal them. So if you're looking at the 2 of them as healers, Sylvie is a better healer. Obviously, Sylvie's not a tank. We can't really compare them in that regard. Let's quickly talk about her VC. I don't think that it is needed at all for Sylvie, although I do think that what's really great about it is her personal buff that it's getting, which is the healing power up, which is always welcome, and then the decreased chance of being targeted. I do really like that specifically, and I think it makes it an okay vision card to pull on. However, I think if you're trying to pinch Visior, then you're not going to get this, even though it gives her some missile resist, some magic, and you're going to end up with these party effects with some AoE resist and some human killer, some critical rate. I don't think that the parties that she's in are going to want to use these things, or even going to have these jobs. So really, I don't think this is necessary to pull for at all. But if you got it, I do actually really value this exclusive bestowed effect. I do think it's really good. I still don't recommend that you pull for this card. All right, so that's it for the video. I hope it was useful for you. Now, if we're wondering if you should be pulling for Sylvie or not, my answer is no. I don't think that you should be. I think there's so many good things coming up here that it's better just to save your Visior. Now, if you are a light main, if you're looking for that rainbow healer for your party because you don't have Velis, then maybe you could be pulling for her, but you also could be waiting for Velis's next rerun and getting him instead, because he really is that good. I think that Sylvie is worse than Velis for healing and support, but she is a little bit better than Velis in terms of healing and attacking. Velis does have some attacking, but he does prioritize quite a bit of buffing, and he can get stuck back as well, whereas I think Sylvie has more going for her to get forward and to start attacking. But at the end of the day, with not a clear spot in light element for Sylvie, and with the amount of things coming up in the future, I just can't really recommend that people pull for her. And that's super disappointing, because I really like Sylvie in FFBE, and I was really hoping for a reason to pull for her. She's not going to be a bad unit, and you might even be on the losing end of a fight against her in the weeks to come here in guild battle. But again, could Velis do the same thing in her spot? Probably could. So that's just something to keep in mind. Otherwise, I'm going to take off, and I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you all in the next one.